We need to ease into this because, quite frankly, this next piece is something we've all seen before. So it shouldn't be shocking. It shouldn't be upsetting. It's ultimately a good sign because once the conversation gets this desperate, that's how you know the side I'm about to show you knows they are losing the argument. When they get this riled up, this is how you know they know they're losing. And of course, we're talking about Jimmy's drop off and show up on Tuckums, where the pro-Russian contingent on Twitter and other sites are applauding this as he goes on and spreads the anti-war message. Now, I don't know how many people in the audience were born yesterday or slept through last year entirely, like fell asleep December 31st of 2021 and just woke up right now and, oh my God, what's happening? To you guys, I can understand how you might think that there's actually a point being made here, or there's some theory. These are details you couldn't possibly know because you were out cold, that you might just believe any of this. I'm fascinated. I know we've seen him yell this shit before, but we haven't seen him yell at it,
So last night I went on
double butt crack McGee.
This guy's show, Tucker Carlson's show. And
yeah, you look exhausted. It must have been a rough.
It's nice
time.
They send a van to the house. I don't even have to go in. So
Really?
It's really convenient. And
they sent a van to the house for Jimmy Dore. I don't even have to go in. It's really convenient. Well, at least we know he'll go to the ends of the earth to say his truth.
But they don't anyway. You know me, I worry about lighting. Anyway, Tucker definitely has better lighting than me. But anyway, so I'll play it for you.
It's your house. It's your house. You have lights. You have this. He's got this fucking studio. There is no they. This is your fault.
Because.
But please keep whining.
And so I went on. It was perfect. So we're doing this anti-war rally on February 19th.
Which is, by the way, a pro-Russia rally.
And at the Lincoln thing and the thing.
At the Lincoln thing.
You see, and I forgot to mention it. I go on. He lets me talk. We're talking about war for 3 minutes straight. And
you could talk about war for 3 minutes straight? Holy smokes. Did you even get through the Athenians?
I'm trying to remember all the stuff I wanted to say, and then I get to the end, and I'm like, okay, I think I'll end it there. And then I thought he'd ask me one more question, and I was going to look at my notes to make sure, and he didn't. He just blah, 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 and that was it. And I was like, oh, I looked at my notes, like, oh, fuck!
That's because you're not there for you, Jimmy. You're there for him. He's promoting Russia's talking points, and you came there to help. You are fucking toilet paper. Tucker Carlson wipes his ass with you and says shoo. This isn't your moment on Tucker Carlson. This is Tucker Carlson's moment to use you. That's how it works. He doesn't give a rat fuck if you promote what you're doing. He's not there because he's interested in what you're doing. He's not even interested in the why. He knows you will do one fucking thing. He just has to wind the key in your back and let you go. And you're only useful for that part. You shit on Democrats and you root for Russia. That only takes 3 minutes.
Forgot to. If someone else had done that, I would never let them forget about it. I would so fucking bust their butt. You didn't talk about the thing. You're talking about
the grace.
But it's Tucker, so. Yeah. So you're saying that you would yell at and shit on anybody except Tucker Carlson.
When I brought up the great Jon Stewart Nazi medal article, I still feel bad I didn't bring it up. We posted, he had it on the screen, but we didn't think to say.
So anyways,
it's a sad day to be Kurt.
Just want to play. So
because the day ends in Y.
I think this segment speaks for itself.
You can be outraged by the people running our country selling out our country to
China by enforcing the CHIPS Act and making people who work for Chinese tech companies choose between working for them or their U.S. citizenship. Again, I don't know what the fuck. Like, at this point, does he only have a crowd of people who just ignore all this shit? Has he ever done a story about the AUKUS agreement of the CHIPS Act? Or the factories that are being built in fucking Arizona? It's weird. It's like such a gap. It'd be one thing if it was like, you know, like one carrier plant like Trump had. And so you're like, well, I suppose they could be doing more. And this looks like just, it might be a facade or whatever. But we have fucking ships circling Taiwan right now. What the fuck?
Should be, but that's a very different thing from wanting to go to war with China.
War?
A war that we have no assurance we would win, to put it mildly.
Yeah, we would. No, I will not put it mildly either. There's no, China would have no shot. They would lose millions of people in a fucking heartbeat. It would be very weird and sad. None of their shit works. It would be Russia in Ukraine on a massive fucking scale. Again, they have 2 aircraft carriers. None of their planes can launch from them. And they can only go 500 miles from shore without having to be refilled. They run on diesel, so they crank smoke, and you can track them anywhere. And one of them used to be a casino.
But in a memo to his troops, 4-star Air Force General Mike Minahan wrote this, quote, "My gut tells me we will fight in 2025. Xi Jinping secured his 3rd term and set his war council in October 2022. Taiwan's presidential elections are in 2024 and will offer Xi a reason. U.S. presidential elections are in 2024 and will offer Xi a distracted America. Xi's team, reason, and opportunity are all aligned for 2025. So what should we take of this? Again, you can be deeply skeptical, in fact, hostile toward China, and still be worried about going to war with China.
Hey, asshat, this isn't about us going to war with China. This is about China attacking an allied country, which is what Taiwan is. And blitz bombing millions of Chinese people for no fucking reason. The one China policy that we always hear about Taiwan always leaves out one factor. And this is largely because the United States looks at the Chinese as a cultural ethnicity and a country. And so the conversation is always watery because Taiwanese people are ethnically Chinese. They are genetically Chinese. They are culturally and linguistically Chinese. However, they are not Chinese from China. They are not subjects of China. They never were. CCP has never been in control of Taiwan. Not a fucking day. Never was. It's where Chiang Kai-shek ran when the nationalist government split. That's the difference. There is no reunification because there was no unification in the first fucking part. And the idea is that we're going to let one of the most technologically influential countries on the planet get swallowed up by an increasingly hegemonic and violent regime in its death throes. Are you out of your fucking mind?
Jimmy Dore is the host of the Jimmy Dore Show. He joins us tonight to assess. Jimmy, should we be paying attention to a memo like this? What do you think it means?
Okay, first of all, generals all the time will talk to the troops about all potential conflicts and preparation for them. It's their fucking job. That's why it's a memo to the troops and a memo to the other commanders and not a public statement from the podium of the DOD press room.
What I think it means is that the United States is trying to provoke and sable rattle with another nuclear...
Sable rattle? Are we wagging furs at the Chinese? Are they anti-fur now? And I didn't catch that part.
power, right? This is what we were supposed to be afraid of what's going to happen with Donald Trump, right? We couldn't have, he's a crazy man who's going to have his finger on the nuclear button, and now we have Demented Joe who is saber rattling with...
Demented Joe. Again, this is why Jimmy is on Tucker. Yeah. Because he defends Donald Trump and he vilifies Biden for being demented and dangerous and about to start a war because a general thinks the potential for China to attack Taiwan is very high.
Nuclear powers, and they get the corporate media sponsored by the military-industrial complex to get America.
And by the way, I think that's just a freeze frame of Tucker. I think he went to take a shit.
To cheer it on. Why do Americans cheer it on? Because they have no idea what's actually happening with their foreign policy, and what's worse is they have no idea.
Yeah, they have no idea. And mostly because they watch my show, and I tell them something, and it's not even close to what's going on. Yeah, that's the.
They have no idea that they don't have any idea what's happening with their foreign policy.
They have no idea that they have no idea.
We have.
By the way, that's the miserable liberal and Kurt, I guess, laughing at this over the audio. So, in case you think the people at Tucker's show suddenly developed a sense of humor or lack thereof, I guess.
Bases surrounding China since the Korean War. Do we really think that China is getting ready to invade the United States? Because I tell you, they're not. They make every...
No. What? Where the fuck did this dickhead get the idea that our concern is they're going to invade the U.S.? The idea is that they're going to invade Taiwan. And we have said we will help protect them because they are a sovereign country. And Jimmy's basically, he's so, quote, anti-war that if somebody else starts a war and starts murdering everyone, the quickest way for the war to be over is to just let it happen. This is, Jimmy Dore's logic is, if the rape victim stops fighting back, it stops being rape and starts being sex. And he's anti-rape that way. That's the argument. That's the logic. That's absolutely the standard. That's exactly what he thinks of Ukraine. It's exactly what he thinks of Taiwan, or quite frankly, any other country that the U.S. or the UN or the fucking UK or any of our allies might come to the defense of. That the sooner you give up fighting, it stops being a war and it's just murder and, none of our fucking business.
We use in the United States. Why? Because the same people who want this war are the same people who took the good jobs that are manufacturing jobs in America, turned them into low-paying, crappy jobs, and then shipped them to China. And then we get angry at them for the system that we set up. If they're so corrupt, because that's the thing, America.
Also, the military-industrial complex is the last technological arena, business-wise, to send anything over to China to get built. And I guess it's the idea that the politicians themselves set up this stuff over there and allowed this to happen so that it wasn't Americans who wanted cheap goods. And the idea that as China opened up, it was starting to liberalize and it was bringing people out of poverty and it was a win-win. Even if the trade imbalance was there, most of us were like, it's not the greatest thing, but it's cheaper because it's built in China and China's flourishing. Look at all the buildings. Look at all the people coming out of poverty. They're building bullet trains now. Good for them. And it's just worldwide business, just global supply chains. And now not only was there a switch when Xi Jinping took power and an absolute flip of how the government reacts towards every country in the world, not just the United States, in terms of business, but how they treat their own people. And that made the difference. And one of the reasons that the jobs are coming home is because businesses over time are having a harder time with their customer base not being cool with that.
no idea how corrupt their government is. They think our government's just regular corrupt, like, oh, Trump gave his son a job or Biden gave his kid a no-show job in the Ukraine war. That's not, the whole thing is corrupt. The $800 billion military budget is $800 billion of corruption. Why do we have to have 900 military bases around? We're the ones provoking this war. Just
also, shipping lanes. Honestly. Shipping lanes. That's what most of our Navy does. Most of our air bases do. Basically, we became the National Guard. Everybody's like, we shouldn't be the policemen of the world. We're not. We're the National Guard of the world. And increasingly, we're not doing that anymore. We're being very choosy about where that is. And it's interesting to me that both of these motherfuckers will not recognize that Trump, multiple presidents ran on or said they would get us out of Afghanistan, and Biden did. And yet they still do this whole forever war thing. There are no American boots on the ground that aren't, that have been sent by the government. They're there because they want to be. Individuals.
We provoked the war in Ukraine. We are now provoking a war.
Yeah, we provoked the war in Ukraine by being in NATO and being okay with Nazis.
China, and who benefits? I'll tell you right now, your enemy is not China, your enemy is not Russia, your enemy is the military-industrial complex, which has been fleecing this country to the tunes of hundreds of billions and trillions of dollars. How many times are we going to have a defense secretary say, hey, we can't account for $2 trillion in the Pentagon again? Which has happened twice now in my lifetime. So again, people.
No, it's not that they can't account for it. They can't tell you. You're talking about decades of military technology and investment and building stuff and prototyping and where stuff is placed in the world. And if you could tell people how it was spent, you would tell them where it was spent and when it was spent and who worked on it. And that tells your enemy who's doing it. And that's part of the whole Pentagon thing. Again, the idea that there's a $500 hammer or a $2,000 toilet, it's a shuffle to hide the money from the enemy.
The war machine cannot be stopped. Who's running this country? The war machine. It certainly isn't Joe Biden making these decisions. I would like to know who is making the decisions. And I just want to remind everyone.
Also, was the war machine running it when Trump ran things? Again, how do the all-powerful suddenly not be all-powerful when it's a guy you like, and suddenly get their power back when it's a guy you don't? It could never be reality. It could never be that it's part and parcel to the circumstance we're in because the world is a fucked up, messy place. It's always got to be the fucking Illuminati.
Buddy, the United States is the world's terrorist. We just set the Middle East on fire in the last 20 years, and now we're doing a proxy war in Ukraine, which we provoked, NATO provoked, and it was just admitted that we provoked it by the former Prime Minister of Germany, and now we're trying to save with China, and they're predicting a war. Again, China's not going to invade us. China's not our enemy. We might have an economic war.
Also, China is our enemy. They're just not going to ever invade us militarily because they couldn't. It's not about them invading us. It's about Taiwan. And that interesting straw man that he sets up that talks about basically just the isolationism of it. He's like, if they attack Taiwan, none of our fucking business. Let them do it. Let those people die. We have the means to help them. We have the partnerships and the relationship with that country. But it's more of a sin to help those people than it is to just watch them get murdered, watch them get slaughtered. Again, for the record, Jimmy does not believe the Tiananmen Square massacre happened. Flat out. Does not believe the Tiananmen Square massacre happened. Does not believe that the Xinjiang forced labor camps. Doesn't believe in forced sterilizations is happening there. Doesn't believe that there's a Han Chinese installed in households to make sure they don't procreate. And quite frankly, may indeed themselves be procreating with the women, the ones that are allowed to have children. Doesn't believe any of that. He's never been to China. He's never been to Russia. He's never been to Europe, as far as I fucking know. Period. But he believes, and this, again, this goes beyond the whole America love it or leave it idea. I can't be clearer about this. It's one thing to think you're not patriotic because you think patriotism is silly or whatever. It's just a country, and getting riled up in that shit is not important, and blah blah blah. And I don't like what's going on, so I just kind of stay out of its zone of disliking your country. It is very different to have that feeling, which a lot of like right wingers would say, America love it or leave it, and tell them to fucking move to wherever, go back to commie Russia or some shit. There's a difference between that and absolutely thinking that you live in the country that is the biggest force of evil in the world and is the progenitor of all violence on the planet, which Jimmy absolutely believes. There would be no war or violence if the United States ceased to exist tomorrow. That is absolutely the Jimmy Dore position. It's a bizarre fantasy world that he, or at least that's what he's selling. I don't know what he actually believes, because he's, a lot of times it's just he believes that his shouty voice is better than his talking voice. That may be the extent of it. But to believe that about the country, this country, and then to live comfortably in it, in a wealthy area of Los Angeles, in a $1 million plus home, is a level of hypocrisy that peaks the fucking meter. Clayton Morris, who fled the United States because of fraud charges and shit like that in Indiana, but for that, or let's say Glenn Greenwald. Glenn Greenwald arguably has more credibility on this matter than Jimmy does, because he lives in Brazil. He and his husband moved to Brazil to start a porn industry, and then The Intercept, after a billionaire gave him millions of dollars. But he left the country. He went, I'll do this from somewhere else. Jimmy's never going to do that. There is no version of reality where Jimmy or Lee Camp,
What these are,
or any of these fuckers move out of the country, much less move to Russia or to China. I haven't been to Russia, but I sure as it have been all over China. And it would be fucking hilarious to see Jimmy go to China for a week and come back. No guide, no like somebody from the propaganda industry, showing him the sights. Just tourist. Just go dangle for a while. And then come back and say this again. Especially now. 25 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, if you went there, and I went before I even shot the show that I did there. I was spending time there off and on over the years, or like the first decade of the millennium. I've been there several times, and I could see the sea changes, but I was also like, everything was kind of relatively normal, and it kind of moved. You knew there was a certain level of Guanxi corruption everywhere, and everybody else did, but it was like low level stuff, bribing stuff about zoning things. Then it became bribing things about, a cop leaving you alone to do something else. Then it became bribing the governor's assistant to keep them from looking at your factory while you made fentanyl analogs. And that's where it is right now. It's a huge difference.
These are economic wars. These are wars for, in Ukraine, it's about liquefied natural gas and making sure Germany.
Oh, this is the idea. He goes, it's about the United States, that Germany gets American liquefied natural gas. The biggest source that they get is from, I believe, the Netherlands.
And Russia never come together because we fear Russia's natural resources and manpower, and we fear them getting together with Germany with their technology and their capital. And so that's why we blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. That's why
we didn't blow up the Nord Stream pipeline. And also, he thinks this is really about us worrying about Germany and Russia getting together on an industrial level. That's a new one. That's next level bullshit.
Doing the Ukraine war. This is all about hegemony, imperialism,
and also Illuminati and deep state and hegemony imperialism. Again, America, if you'd only been truly the imperial nightmare that he says you are, we would have owned Germany right now and Japan, and we would have kept that Russian oil and gas out of there all these years because we would have controlled the territory. But we had to just, after World War II, we had to let them go about their business.
Economics. And if there's a Marine somewhere, it's there because they're about to steal some natural resources from another country. As everybody's...
Yes, Marines are just the getaway driver for oil and gas companies.
About what a bad guy Putin is for invading Ukraine, the United States is currently occupying a third of Syria. And which third is that? It's the third that has the oil. And
the oil revenues go to the Kurds.
How do I know we're there to steal their oil? Because the President of the United States said so.
No, he did not.
We're not even benefiting economically. Of course, that's the rub. Jimmy?
Up, see? Look at that. Jimmy, he let you go on your rant, and then he knifed your tires on the way out and then didn't let you promote shit. We're doing this all for money, and we're not even making money out of it. Good night. Oh, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Oh, he gave you time. You should have said, don't forget. That was the gap of time, Jimmy, when you could have gone. By the way, I want to remind everybody, he said, thank you. That means it's over. You had a few seconds. Never mind. You were ranting.
I like to really drag. Oh, you can come to me. I like to really drag that out.
I would have forgot to plug the mortgage as well, because that's a lot of... I don't know how you got that all out.
I don't know.
What are you talking about? It's the same shit he says all the fucking time. He's done that rant on 8 different podcasts, almost word for word. Again, it felt like he was running it like a bit for when comics used to do Carson. They'd have to run the same 5 or 7 minute bit at the clubs over and over and over again, so the booker could go, okay, they got it down, it's smooth, there's no ruffles, you can go do it, and do it exactly that way. Write it down, word for word, that's what we want to see.
I just start going. Anyway, so there it is. And by the way, I would love to say that stuff on MSNBC, CNN, ABC. They will never have me on. The only person in the...
Yeah, that's because of the whole, like, Anna Kasparian sexual harassment shit, largely.
Corporate news that will have a message like that
is somebody who wants Russia to win. Weird.
Who hosts for Fox News and
has been rooting for Putin the entire time.
Coincidentally, has the #1 news show in America.
I was gonna say he has better ratings. Why would you go on the best rated one?
So
yeah, obviously that's where the ratings are.
On the #1 news show in America, and then I get to also go on the #1 podcast in America or in the world. So I think it's okay. So thanks to Tucker for bringing me on and having that message to his audience, which needs to hear that China and Russia are not your enemy. They need to hear it. They got to hear it. And thanks to Tucker to let me say it.
Well, you know what's so funny is, like, they're not going to invade the United States. People are like, oh, if they invade Taiwan,
that's not invading the United States.
Yeah, we have to go. Taiwan, the United States, not me. No, the United States, it belongs to them.
It belongs to Taiwan.
So
no. Having a one China policy is not saying that Taiwan belongs to China. That's not what the one China policy says.
Talking about, to China.
Yeah.
I didn't know that we officially said that. This whole time, I've only heard if they invade Taiwan.
It's one China policy. So that means the United States acknowledges that China owns that they're part of that.
No, it doesn't.
It's
a cultural thing. It started in the fucking 70s when there was no modern China.
There's a movie in China that's like their version of Rambo called Wolf Warrior. Okay.
Yes, and this is the next movie that Jimmy and Kurt will mutually masturbate each other while watching.
And it's a lot of stuff about like how they're nicer in Africa, and then they fight a capitalist bad guy. But it's like Rambo. It's just like how Rambo is.
No, it is not. It's nowhere fucking near Rambo. I don't know if anybody's seen Wolf Warrior. Any of those situations, there is no part in it where, like, literally in Rambo 3, he's in Afghanistan, and the movie is fucking dedicated to the people of Afghanistan. It is the proud people of Afghanistan, and it stands with the fucking Yusufzad and groups that would become the Mujahideen later on. And it's about like villages that are being fucking wiped out and that kind of stuff. And he's fighting for them, and he's got his own people are not letting him fight, or he refused to go in the first time because he doesn't think it's an important thing, and then he gets drawn into it because they take Troutman or whatever, and he decides to go in after his friend, and then he goes. Somebody says early on, it's not your war. And then he says it is now because he was there at this battle and he watched children being strafe bombed and whatever. In Wolf Warrior, none of the Chinese superiors differ with the main dude. They're all on mission Super China. And like, if somebody has a Taiwan patch, they'll get murdered. It's the goofiest. It's absurd. Like the Rambo one, the second and third one aren't even jingoistic. None of the Rambo movies are rah-rah American movies. That's the irony of them. Because in all cases, there's like military corruption, or the guys want to leave the MIAs behind, and he's forced to go in against his own government's wishes to get those guys out because they're more important than policy and international diplomacy. None of those fucking movies are like... They're always mistaken for these like jingoistic... Super America movies. Wolf Warrior absolutely is that. I'll tell you what, he's right in one respect, is that when Kurt Metzger, with his smooth brain, watches Wolf Warrior, he sees the same thing that's in the Rambo movies because he's incapable of that distinction.
I have a thing called Wolf Warrior diplomacy, which is like when I think of that Dippy General, all that thing he was saying, there's a bunch of politicians that are like that. And I watched a whole video about China has these Wolf Warrior diplomats. Like,
yeah, guys, he watched a whole video. Okay. And look at Jimmy. Jimmy's like, all right, that's all I need. Look, I could say this. I'll just repeat what he says. He watched a whole video.
Everything we say sounds exactly like what they say.
Yep.
No, it does not. And what do you mean, yep? It fucking does not. It's not even close. What he's talking about is like that general, that memo from the general saying it looks like they're going to attack in 2025, and we got to be prepared because if we're going to defend them, or if we have to defend them, that's what we're going to be ramping up towards. China just says Taiwan's ours, fuck you, and the U.S. is full of fat murdering hypocrites, and and we can wipe you out in a second. And also, the Han Chinese are the superior race of all humankind. But then, that sounds a little Nazi-ish to me. But never mind. Kurt saw a whole video. Kurt told Jimmy he saw a whole video. He summarized it, and now Jimmy knows something.
The 2 years are going to have a war.
They're going to have a war.
They're going to have a blue water navy. To challenge us on the high seas.
A blue water navy.
That means they can leave the China area with their navy.
Hey, we're doing live stand.
Also, no, he isn't. Also, it's interesting to me. I don't know what the fuck happened, but he stopped doing flappers. Kudos to flappers. And has started doing this little Two Roads place, which is just like 5 doors down from this little juice place and this coffee place I like. And I think in Studio City. It's a little black box theater. It's a really strange choice. Really strange. And then he's doing single dates because these are special events. So I think he's probably not booking them. It looks like he's two-walling them. I'll take the tickets, you take the food kind of stuff. But that struck me as weird. I was at that juice place not too long ago, and that little theater, and it looked like it was closed. Looked like it would, it had been, one of these places that collapsed under COVID. Because there's a bunch of comedy clubs in the Valley. There's Ha Ha and of course Flappers, and then there's what the fuck is there? I haven't even been there in years. And then there's obviously the Improv and the Laugh Factory and shit like that. It's interesting to me.
Comedy in Los Angeles.
Yeah, that's not in Los Angeles. That's in Studio City. That's in the Valley, and it's a weird, tiny little theater. It struck me as really odd when I saw it. Anyways, by the way, hi chat room. Just saying, he's doing comedy noir. Yeah, you should go there and sit in the front row and heckle. I am tempted. I am very tempted to go to that show because I was gonna do a while back. In many ways, I have been. I wanted to go to. The clip was too loud. I'm sorry. I beg your pardon, because it's the same on my end. I apologize. Did it blast? Apologies. I should check with you guys because it's all different in there. I'll look. I'll be sure to check. This is a new setup. I'm sorry about that, guys. Boo hoo. I'm sorry. Yeah, my green screen. If I rotate, it's just a circle on the back of my chair. So I'm working on it.